When you body slam and grapple for a living, you're bound to make a few enemies, but the only thing bigger than André the Giant's hands was his temper. Even in wrestling, almost killing your coworkers is frowned upon. These days, Hulk Hogan and André the Giant are remembered as bitter rivals in the ring, but great friends off camera. But that friendship took some time to build, as Hulk told The Voice Versus he started out on André's bad side for failing to respect the sport of wrestling. Hulk reflected that when he was young, he thought he was as big and tough as André, and André would handily prove him wrong in the ring.
The first few years, I was just another kid that didn't understand this business.
But as Hogan matured, he realized how much André loved wrestling and began to understand why he wanted to protect it. But even when Hogan was an established star in WWF, he'd still walk on eggshells around the big guy from time to time. Hogan told Sports Illustrated that, leading up to their WrestleMania 3 match in 1987, he'd prepared notes for how that match would go. Worried that André wouldn't like that, he had promoter Vince McMahon relay the instructions without saying they were from Hulk. As Hogan recalled, if Vince had showed André that I wrote the match out, he was going to have a red and yellow blood spot in the middle of the ring. Conflict breaks out between wrestlers for all kinds of reasons, but André's beef with Randy Savage has to be one of the most specific. Apparently, the Macho Man oiled himself up way too much, and that didn't fly with the Frenchman. Speaking with the Tampa Bay Times, Savage's brother Lanny Poffo discussed André's ire for Savage and his excessive use of baby oil. Poffo explained, Randy wouldn't stop wearing it. He stubbornly said André's gimmick is being a giant, and mine is baby oil. He never backed down from André, and they never got along because of it. While speaking on the Talk is Jericho podcast, biographer Pat LaPrade explained that André's aversion to baby oil was more than a pet peeve. He literally couldn't get in the shower to wash it off.
The shower in the hotels he was living at weren't made for a person of his size.
Hardly anyone wanted to mess with Bad News Brown back in the day, and considering he went to the Olympics for judo, we can't blame them. In the 1980s, he played a bad guy who didn't even like his fellow bad guys, and he was as intimidating out of the ring as he was during a match. In a shoot interview with Title Match Wrestling, Brown explained how André had to learn that the hard way while they were on tour. While on the bus with André, Dusty Rhodes, and Hulk Hogan, Brown claims that he overheard the Frenchman using racial slurs. Brown quickly warned André not to use racist language around him, and André swore in his face in response. Brown initially tried to fight André then and there, but ultimately decided to let it lie for the evening. The next morning, Brown confronted André again, and once again made it clear that he didn't tolerate the Giant's behavior. André ultimately apologized, but things remained frosty between them in the following years. Fortunately, they were able to put their differences behind them shortly before André's death in 1993. Bret the Hitman Hart and André the Giant got along very well during most of the time they shared in the wrestling business. But the same could not be said for Bret's oldest brother, Smith Hart. Supposedly the black sheep of the Hart wrestling dynasty, Smith was a bit of a wild card back in the day, particularly when the Hart brothers were still competing in their father's Calgary-based Stampede Wrestling. As Bret recalled in his autobiography, Hitman, André fell out with Smith after a dangerous ride to the Calgary airport. André had less than 30 minutes to catch a flight, and it was a 40-minute drive to the terminal. Even so, Smith was confident he could make it on time. As Bret wrote, "That's when I buckled my seatbelt." Smith drove like an absolute lunatic at speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour through city traffic. They survived the wild ride, but when Smith and André went inside, Canadian law enforcement showed up and held Bret at gunpoint. While Bret convinced the officer not to arrest his older brother, André was understandably annoyed with the Hart brothers. And while it took a few years, André ultimately forgave Bret for the incident when they both worked for WWF. In the late 80s, Bam Bigelow was an up-and-coming young talent and a fresh recruit for WWF. Even years after his passing, fans still praised the late Bigelow for how agile and athletic he was, despite his massive size. And while he may have died with a stellar reputation, the Beast from the East was not the ideal coworker during his first WWF stint. Like many a young wrestler, his ego and tendency to brag kept him from befriending the veteran wrestlers around him. Luckily, André the Giant was never afraid to give someone a lesson in humility. In his autobiography, Hart recalled that the Giant took it upon himself to beat some sense into Bigelow, literally. Hart wrote, "One night in the ring at Madison Square Garden, André got his hands on Bigelow and practically killed him, for real. That was all the attitude adjustment Bigelow needed, and he changed his ways." The expression, "this place isn't big enough for the two of us," could not be more applicable to André the Giant and Big John Studd. They were two of the largest performers on the WWF's mid-80s rosters, and they didn't always get along. According to their peers, André's dislike for Studd stemmed from a number of things. First off, Studd hit pretty hard in the ring. As Hacksaw Jim Duggan recalled on his Hacksaw Hour podcast, Studd once potatoed André hard enough to hurt him. After the match, André didn't mince words about it.
Big John comes in, he goes, Andre, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Andre goes, sorry means to me.
Likewise, Jake the Snake Roberts shared his own story about the feud on his podcast, The Snake Pit. Reportedly, Stud said some things in a promo that rubbed the Giant the wrong way.
He did an interview where he said Andre wasn't a giant, he was a freak.
Given that Andre's size was the result of the medical condition acromegaly, he didn't appreciate this crack. In response, he proceeded to mercilessly beat Stud whenever the two were in close quarters. During his time in the WWF and other promotions, the late Kamala played the part of a Ugandan giant who was so out of control that he needed a ringside handler at every match. This gimmick was extremely racially insensitive, and it wasn't the only problematic treatment he'd received as a wrestler. He was also a victim of André the Giant's racist insults. As Kamala told VOC Nation, "When I first started working with him, he called me a derogatory name in the ring and I beat him up." In the same interview, Kamala also stressed that André wasn't as nice as he may have acted in interviews. He was frequently rude to fans and coworkers, and he had a serious attitude problem. Speaking with Bleacher Report, Kamala recalled that he also beat up André after a mix-up during a 1982 match. He ultimately pointed a gun at André to get him to apologize, and while André did say he was sorry, Kamala kept that firearm on him for a while just in case the Giant lashed out again. The Ultimate Warrior was an enigmatic and talented young buck when he faced off with André the Giant, and the two didn't always see eye to eye. They first crossed paths during the Ultimate Warrior's original stint in Vince McMahon's company, and by that point, André's career was on its last legs. Thanks to a combination of injuries and acromegaly, he was much slower and weaker than in his younger years, and that complicated their matches. Speaking about their feud on his Something to Wrestle With podcast, longtime WWE executive Bruce Pritchard said that the French Giant was okay with his in-ring rival in small doses, but that was it. They engaged in 30-second squash matches, but when it came to the longer ones, the Warrior was just too fast and hit too hard. In those longer matches, André tried his best to keep up with the Warrior, and even asked him to slow it down a notch in the ring.
When Warrior would keep going a mile a minute and keep hitting André with everything he had, André had a way of dealing with it.
André proceeded to relentlessly beat the Warrior until the younger wrestler got the message. After that, he went a bit easier during their matches. The Iron Sheik developed such a reputation for making profane, off-the-wall comments that he became a legitimate social media icon years after he retired from wrestling. And while ex-users often had a good chuckle reading the Sheik's ghost-written rants about random topics, his wrestling colleagues didn't enjoy his smack talk nearly as much back in the day. In André's 2018 HBO documentary, Hulk Hogan recalled the night he saw the Frenchman finally lose his patience with the Sheik. Tired of the smack talk, the Giant took him out in the ring and gave him such a serious thrashing that Hogan feared for the Sheik's life.
Watching him, oh my God, somebody stop this massacre, he's gonna kill the guy.
Then, in a 2002 interview with RF Video, Bobby the Brain Heenan revealed that the eighth wonder of the world was not a fan of how the Iron Sheik treated local enhancement talents either. These were wrestlers with 9-to-5 jobs who got booked to lose matches to the bigger names for extra cash. He recalled, André just hated the Sheik, hated him because he pushed people around and took advantage of people in the ring. The Fabulous Freebirds are one of pro wrestling's greatest factions of all time, and they were also notorious party animals. And it was for that reason that they didn't last too long in the WWF, despite their massive success in the territorial scene. There's a popular urban legend that it was André himself that fired the Freebirds from WWF, but faction leader Michael Hayes claims that's not exactly how it went down. Recalling the incident on Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw, Hayes admitted that he and his stablemates, Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts, arrived drunk and late for a show in Ohio, where André was assigned as the match's backstage agent. André noticed that Hayes was drunk, and while the trio did enter the ring that night, their performance was terrible. As Hayes tells it, he confessed to Vince McMahon that he showed up too drunk to perform. And while André was displeased with the Freebirds' unprofessional behavior, wrestlers don't have the authority to fire their peers. So it was McMahon's team who issued Hayes, Gordy, and Roberts their pink slips.
André may have said fire us, but André officially didn't fire us. Vince did.
While everyone else on this list shared the ring with André the Giant, none of them had the power and authority that Vince McMahon did as the owner and chairman of WWF. Despite the many controversies he's faced through the years, McMahon often tried to look out for his wrestlers. But when he suggested that the aging André was better off hanging up his boots, the big man was deeply hurt.
At one point, Vince kind of tried to make him understand that, his wrestling career was pretty much over.
André felt very bitterly toward McMahon after that conversation and proceeded to ignore his advice. Many years later, McMahon shared how he regretted their falling out and that they didn't patch things up before André's death. While he didn't say much about their disagreements in HBO's André the Giant documentary, the thought of his old friend clearly made him emotional.
Do you remember the last time you spoke with him?
Not specifically.